Let's talk about ThousandEyes from the perspective of a SMB user. So what I'm going to be talking about today is what our experience has been with ThousandEyes, the cloud agent, the enterprise agent. Who here has distributed workforce users that they're responsible for? Who has a distributed workforce? Work-at-home users, telecommuters, VIPs who are traveling, and all of a sudden that rolls up to the network team for some reason? Okay, so that's kind of the world that we're living in. And I always say to people, if you don't support end users, I'm like saying, what happens to when your mom's internet goes out? That's always the call I get. If I get a call at 8 a.m. from my mom, I know what that is. So let's talk about AIM Specialty Health, who we are. So obviously from the name, we're in the healthcare sector. Primarily what we provide is we are a specialty benefits provider, i.e. we work between large healthcare plans, insurance companies, and providers. So providers are customers of our services. We have approximately 300,000 users. And you can see here, we're a very large player in our space, but we're focused only on the US market. We have approximately 50-some large payers. 40% of the Fortune 50 are our customers, and we cover approximately 42 million lives. So from a physical footprint perspective, we're based out of the Chicagoland area. We have 5 sites, and from a network perspective, we have about 5,000 endpoints in total. Me, what I'm responsible for is ultimately network and technical security all rolls up to me. Our autonomous system, it may not be the largest, but it's very special to me. And some of the flavors of things that my teams are concerned with. I'm responsible for data center, campus networking, application delivery to those public users, and also I'm responsible for getting the funding and the political capital so that we can build networks so we can appropriately deliver those services. So, like I said earlier, we're 1 year in working with ThousandEyes. What was the reason, what was the honest that got us familiar with them? Well, it always kind of comes back to, you can think about somebody approaches and says, hey, I got this project, I got this thing I need to talk to you about. And for us, that was rolling out a fixed telecommuter program. So a number of our customers have a lot of compliance, we'll just say there's a lot of compliance requirements, and that forces us to be in a very tough situation for recruiting and looking for medical doctors in very specialized areas. And if we find an oncologist and he's in Kentucky, we're going to bring him on board. We don't really have an option to say, we're limited to this geographic region. It's all teams are familiar with this, right? Everybody has these same problems if you're trying to recruit people. But the requirements, the business came to us and said that we're looking to connect users across the continental US. They want it as much as possible to be a plug and play, and they need to have a data and voice experience that's comparable to that of a campus user. And the data aspect, we're dealing with TCP-based web apps. We can account for a lot. We can sweep a lot under the rug there. But when you're dealing with voice, it gets to be a little bit trickier. And this was kind of like our team's response. We're a big believer in cloud. Private cloud. We've been able to use the shield of regulations to be able to say, we got a cloud, go open up the data center, and there it is, and it's our own private cloud. But increasingly, due to needs for partners and that model has been breaking down. And this was the project that really got my team apprehensive, because when you're talking about delivering voice over IP to unknown locations, it hasn't traditionally worked out very well. But the business had a need. What we do, we got to come up with a solution. So we put together a quick POC. What we have here is we had a circuit that wasn't being used. It was a new carrier, and had some conversations, and we was like, sure, we'll get a circuit, we'll try out, and that. So we had that. We were able to pull that into some other equipment we had. We deployed a VPN concentrator. So what we would do for make it a plug-and-play experience, we would put a IPsec gateway at the location where these users are. They would plug in a voice over IP handset, daisy chain their PC off of that. We give them a native data VLAN, and then give them a trunked voice VLAN, and terminate them into our data center, and then provide the access to data and voice from that. So proof of concept worked really well. Everybody was really happy with it. And then we moved on to other projects and came back in about 2 months later, and all of a sudden we heard that, wow, there's this huge issue. So the NOC calls us and says, we're having a huge issue. And we're like, what is this? And the ticket comes in, and I pick up the phone and I said, help my guys understand, what are you talking about? We set up a POC. Well, the POC was so successful that the business people loved it, and they put a couple of test users on it, and kind of turned into a soft production system. So we're like, oh, great. Essentially, some of the issues that we were having was, who would have thought it, that the data provider for that one fixed circuit was having huge national BGP stability issues. Basically, they were in a similar situation as us. They needed to recruit some new engineers. After they black-holed a couple of backbone locations a couple of times. So users, but also though, other than that though, we had some users on the West Coast and some other areas that were reporting terrible quality, as we would have expected. For my team was saying, hey, we're looking at our own in-house tools. Circuit utilization's great. 422's responding nice and clean. I don't see any issue. So we essentially didn't have a good perspective of how these services were being consumed and delivered to the endpoint. So looking at our existing monitoring tools, we have, at last count, probably 15 different platforms. But kind of break it down, they're using mostly technologies such as good old ICMP, SNMP traps, curl, and the guys who have curl, they think that's a very sophisticated method of monitoring. Syslog, NetFlow, IPSLA, but things that weren't really giving us the perspective we needed because we had some vendor compatibility issues. The IPsec gateway that was at the premise location wasn't speaking to our infrastructure. There were some issues there where we couldn't have direct IPSLA between those points. So got another problem, great. So we did the POC went well, but now it's in production, so fix it. So then said, okay, well this is not the kind of thing that I'm going to go out and Google for. I don't want to get into the DSL forums and find out how people are solving the problems for their mom's network, but went out to the NANOG mailing list. NANOG's been a great resource. I had previous experience with them from a financial services background in the mid-2000s, and kind of went back out and dusted off NANOG and went through the mailing list and did some research, and then also went to Slack. Slack's a really good resource site that's maintained at Stanford, and cross-referencing that, I came across ThousandEyes. This was in early 2015, and I said, I've seen this referenced in a couple places, and clicked it and went with a sign up and did a trial. So in that trial, what we were looking to do is we were utilizing the ThousandEyes Cloud Agent. And like we've been saying here, it was a very common story, we're looking to gain visibility into service delivery, visibility into BGP, and we're looking to make some informed and very quick decisions about remediation. Basically, once I found out that this had moved over to being a soft production system, we said, okay, this is what we're going to need we started making the capital allocations, but then we said we need to get the designs together. Who was going to be our tier 1 providers? Who's going to be our carriers we're going to work with? What kind of data do we have from our end users and where they're coming from? We didn't have a lot of data. It's kind of hard to make decisions when you don't have data. So we set up cloud agents around the country, and we very quickly got the information we needed. I'm not sure if many of you would want to sit down and log into a looking glass server and work with your VP to say, here's the issue. Isn't it very clear? It's kind of like bringing up a packet capture on a call with account people. I can read that. It's right there. You see it, right? But this, I could show this to my mom. My mom's, red. Bad. Red's bad. Red's bad. 100% packet loss. Very bad. Had one meeting, talked about this, got my capital allocation approved.
Mom wrote you out a check.
Mom took care of college for me, so for that, she's taken care of. So based upon this, though, we were able to gain very concrete data. Some of the things that Matt mentioned earlier is that he pulls some of that data in via API. That's one of the things that we're looking at down the road, is how we can pull that API data in, and can we store it in ELK or some other information for some long-term visibility as well. But we're able to get some very granular data about where our workforce users were coming from. We're able to have conversations with operations about where they're continuing to roll this out, and how we're going to handle essentially a concept which was jokingly referred to as bring your own network. So other things that we were able to do, we were able to get some information so we could do some traffic engineering. My team, as far as scope, handling all those areas I talked about earlier, I got about 10 guys. So being able to effectively utilize their resources, and also these were guys that were more enterprise focused and weren't really what I would say from a network operator background, not used to doing traffic engineering as much, but they were able to very quickly work with this data and some of our partners to be able to optimize and work around some of the problematic transit that we were seeing. Well, I'm sure we all have our providers we like and those that we don't care for as much, but yet we're contractually obligated to. So data and visibility into operations in spades. From that, we were able to rapidly build out a true production environment to be able to support our users, able to provide some tier 1 providers instead of the, what I'll say is a gracious classification of tier 2 for the current one we were working with. And add on some additional features. We got some additional admission and NAC into that, but rolled that out, and hooray, I like green. This is just kind of a nice visualization. We can see there some of the traffic engineering we did for some of our locations to be able to avoid some of the problematic transit that we were seeing, making transit from West Coast to the central region. Some providers there, the peering was left a lot to be desired. And then the other thing is we were able to have very nice dashboards. I can't emphasize enough how powerful this tool is, because I can sit down with a NOC person, I can have front desk, help desk people work with this tool, and they can understand very quickly what is our desired and normal state of operations, and how do we recognize when we have an issue that is systemic and needs to be immediately escalated. And also, how do we identify where that issue lies? Is it our premise, provider premise? How do we get that process escalated? Okay, so next we did that, gave us a lot of visibility into that. But the next thing we started looking at was we had some use cases for the enterprise agent. So I talked about how we were mostly private cloud, but increasingly we had more and more providers that we were having to work with, partners. So from a workflow perspective, we have tools that are hosted by other organizations, and we, surprise, surprise, have issues from time to time with that. The public internet is in a state of flux. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So we needed some comparable tools on our private transport. We needed some benefits for mesh monitoring. All those 15 monitoring platforms we have, typically based out of one location, doesn't quite give you the best visibility into all your sites. So being able to easily just drop in an enterprise agent and run tests on a meshed basis provided a lot of benefits for us. And just once again, it's all about having visibility into the delivery. So this is an example of one of our providers who had such an issue. And of course, we were getting mired down into the whose problem is it issue. Once again, the monitoring platform for this was primarily curl-based and ICMP, so not a lot of information. My team gets involved, does some diagnostics, provides the information to identify, based on mostly not too sexy, but a simple trace route, and we were able to quickly see where the loss was happening. But that data was not being consumed as well, as I'll say, is when we're on the call, they're saying, this is a situation. We're basically getting stonewalled by the ISP, saying, we need you to run this according to according to this test at this time, and we need to be on the same time, and we need to be able to replicate it. And our response was like, great, We see this every day from 5 p.m. to approximately 10 p.m. 40% packet loss on average, but yet weren't really getting a lot of uptake. So what we did was we looked at this, and you can see here is that at the bottom baseline is you see maybe 2 to 3% of packet loss, and that's from the cloud agent's perspective. So we took a look at used the number of cloud agents, and then we also dropped in our first enterprise agent. And the first enterprise agent, we were able to see very quickly, we had a very large delta there in performance. And then we're able to come together with a nice path visualization. Love path visualization. I mean, this helps so many conversations. Working with the ISP, working with another provider, very powerful. So we're able to pull one of these, do a share, and say, here's all the data. Take a look at it. Just tell us how you're going to fix it. I mean, we all have our own issues, and we have enough of a tough time getting through and working through and delivering on remediation for our own issues, but we shouldn't have to pay the pain of other providers pushing their issues down on us. That's it.